I'm sorry. ABC News is reporting that the amount of federal employees that Trump just fired could be upwards of 200,000.
So the president's administration is looking to terminate a significant chunk of the federal workforce, upwards potentially of 200,000 federal employees in the first round. And as an economist, I want to talk about what this means economically, because this isn't just going to affect the Washington, D.C. area. It's going to have far-reaching implications nationwide. To give you a sense of the size of the federal workforce is around 2.2 million people. Interestingly, 30% of the federal workforce are veterans. And what the president's administration has said they want to do is they want to downsize that amount of people. And so far, how they've done this is that they've terminated the employment of hundreds of thousands of what are known as probationary employees. Now, the reason that they're probationary isn't because they're not doing their work satisfactorily. Probationary just means this is their first, or in the case of attorneys, second year of employment. It's to see whether or not that employee can do the job before you give them sort of a tenured appointment in the federal government. And these probationary hires are often not brand new employees to the federal government. If you take a raise or if you change agencies, oftentimes you are put on probationary status. Now, DOJ's stated goal in terms of improving government efficiency is they want to fire 75% of the federal workforce. This amounts to around 480,000 veterans. And the easiest way to start to do this is to fire these probationary employees because they don't have as many protections when it comes to firing as employees that have more of a tenure. The way that you can easily fire probationary employees is you can say that people have poor performance, although from this article, as you can see, a lot of people have stellar reviews on their performance and they're confused why they were let go. Now, when people think of the federal workforce, they tend to think of Washington, D.C. as the center of that. However, as apparent from this article, 80% of federal employees actually do not live in Washington, D.C. They live all over in Texas and California, but I will give it to you that D.C. having 20% of the federal workforce is a pretty significant chunk. And it's pretty interesting keeping in mind that DC, among metro regions of the United States, has the 6th largest GDP per output as of 2023. So the question is, when you have massive layoffs like the ones happening in the federal government, what happens to the economies of these areas? Remember, these effects are not just happening in DC. These are happening in neighborhoods and metro areas across the country where there are high proportions of federal workers. We know from economics data that when people are affected by mass layoffs, they oftentimes are set back in years of pre-displacement earnings, and it depends on the unemployment rate. So when the unemployment